Hello, my name's Andrew and I'm from The Clubs. Today we're going to talk about the lockout laws, which were introduced earlier in 2014, and there's certainly been some mixed opinions on the matter. The clubs themselves, though, really want to look at the people who have really been impacted from the issue, those who have lost their jobs, the clubs that have shut down, or even those who lost a place to go to on a Thursday or Friday night. But the clubs themselves really want to look deep into how we can possibly make a solution that satisfies everybody.
King's Cross, I'm the CEO of the King's Cross Licensing Accord. My name is Doug Grand.
Fortitude Valley in Brisbane, in Melbourne, that lockouts don't work. Yet we saw in January the government put in a range of these reforms without consultation, without listening to the people.
We need to make sure that we can work together for those organisations that are involved in these issues. And that's not just clubs which you go to, but it's the clubs and pubs, it's my industry, it's the New South Wales Police, it's the government, there's a range of other members of the community that we need to make sure that we work together.
Change the culture of the Sydney CBD nightlife. People could no longer go to their favourite venue after 1:30.
To look at the actual the issues that have been created with the lockouts and all the other restrictions that have been imposed on King's Cross. In 2012, July 2012, we had the unfortunate issue of the tragic death of Thomas Kelly. And the most unfortunate thing for King's Cross venues at that time was the person that perpetrated that crime hadn't even entered a premise in King's Cross. He was actually pre-fueled. This is all on public record. He actually pre-fueled coming in from the western suburbs. Drank, I think it was double Smirnoff Black vodka, cased them between him and his friends. Went down into Darling Harbour, had a drink there, came into King's Cross. Couldn't get into any venues, and then on that night he actually struck 5 people in a radius around King's Cross before the punch was made to Thomas Kelly. It's tragic, and it was at 10 o'clock at night. I believe it was 10 o'clock at night. From that, the government held a forum at Town Hall. Was attended by various politicians. The Accord was represented. I represented the Licensing Accord, and the AHA were there as well. Clover Moore was there, and there was Malcolm Turnbull was there, and various other people, including Mark Murdoch, the Assistant Commissioner at the time. Whilst we were at that forum, it was announced by the then Minister, George Soros, that an audit of licensed premises in King's Cross was being held as we were at that forum. From that, as a way of background, the incident registers kept by the premises were actually reviewed and taken away by the Office of Liquor and Gaming and Racing. And then some 6 to 7 weeks later, an interim report came through, a preliminary report from the Director General advising that certain changes would be made. In that report itself, there was pre-fueling wasn't noted as an issue, which caused concerns amongst the licensed premises because it was a massive issue in King's Cross at the time. And one of the premises actually challenged the report to try and actually view the report itself, which none of us have ever seen. The challenge was actually lost, and from that point, the government then elected to push a raft of changes into King's Cross through a bill, a liquor amendment bill, and it was called the King's Cross Plan and Management Bill. And it was in 2 stages, stage 1 and 2. Some of it was implemented in 2012, and some of it was implemented in 2013. From those changes, King's Cross is now got the toughest laws, liquor licence laws in Australia, without a shadow of a doubt. King's Cross has 10 strike conditions that aren't in the Liquor Act for other premises in New South Wales.
Our concerns and the evidence just was not listened to. there had been evidence that the so-called Newcastle model of a 1am, 1:30 lockout and a 3 o'clock cease service of alcohol or close wasn't as effective as other measures. We know that transport, better high visibility policing and a range of other strategies are far more effective in reducing the level of assaults in and around licensed venues, and they're the ones that should have been implemented, and unfortunately it wasn't. The licensed venues were treated as the low-hanging fruit, and they were punished, and we're still seeing the effects of that right now.
I think it's a pretty undisputable fact that since these laws were introduced, that there has been a reduction in violence, and that is a good thing. We should be really pleased that that has been an outcome. But of course, with every new law, there will be changes and there will be impacts. So what we need to do is understand what those impacts are. Now, we're delighted in the reduction of violence, as you would expect, because one thing that we found was that the street violence and the violence that was happening as a consequence of alcohol and drug related issues was translating itself to violence against our taxi drivers. Now, our taxi drivers are there to get you home and to make sure you have a night which is fun all the way through from the time you get there, but also all the way home. So we need to make sure that our drivers are also looked after, and for them to be assaulted and abused really doesn't help them, obviously, in performing their role, and ultimately that doesn't help you. So that's what I mean where we need to work together.
The first set of conditions were implemented on the 7th of December 2012. They included things, a requirement of RSA marshals on top of security to work inside the premises, and the actual categorization of what the government deemed high risk was any venue that traded past midnight with a patron capacity above 120. And it didn't actually matter if your trading history or record. It was that was the criteria that was used.
Since the lockouts were introduced in January or into February of 2014, we've seen a range of issues. We've also seen better high visibility policing. Since that time, there's been no less than 3 major policing operations walking around the streets of Sydney, and that's what we'd always said would lead to a reduction in assaults. You've got police out there on the beat, being seen, and you've got people far more accountable for their actions. You know, some significant laws, some banning laws and other things. They're the sorts of measures that should have an impact. And of course, we've also seen a drastic reduction in the number of people that are going out in the Sydney CBD in King's Cross. Go to King's Cross after 1 a.m. in the morning, you can fire a gun down the street and hit no one, because there is no one left in King's Cross after that period.
So there you go, we've heard a variety of different opinions and a variety of different solutions from a variety of people in the community. And it's you, the audience, who can make a difference. If it impacts you, you can do something about it. And if you want to get involved, pop on to Le Club's website, leclubs.com. That's leclubs.com. I'm Andrew. Thank you for joining us.